Hello and welcome back to another video. I want to start off with a little apology. No video out on Saturday and the reaction's been delayed 2 days until Tuesday. I don't really have an explanation for it. Just didn't do it, to be completely honest. But we will be back. We've got videos for tomorrow. Well, I don't yet, but I'm going to do that straight after this. So we will have a video for tomorrow. Get back in the rhythm of Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday uploads. This one's coming out on the Tuesday, which is not a regular upload day, but it's going to be... This is effectively the video that should have come out on Sunday. Saturday, it just didn't come out, unfortunately. I had ideas for those for Saturday, but yeah, the video... To be fair, the Saturday video did break down. The idea just collapsed. And on Sunday, that's the one I don't have an explanation for. But yeah, without any further ado, let's get into my reaction to what's occurred in the Japanese Grand Prix. What are the major talking points? I suppose quali. Anything major happening in quali? I mean, Verstappen got pole. I think we all kind of knew that was going to happen. Don't think there was any major Q1 or Q2 eliminations. The biggest one probably being Lance Stroll getting knocked out, and that's not because he's a good driver, that's because he drives in an Aston Martin, and should definitely not be getting eliminated in Q1, but it's Lance Stroll, we should probably be used to this by now. But I honestly think that's the only major talking point of quali. So let's get into the race now, and I'm trying to think if there's anything... I mean, we need to talk about lap 1, to be fair. Albon and Daniel Ricciardo made contact. I don't know what to make of it. I don't think either of them particularly at fault. If that was a little later in the race, you could argue Ricciardo's fault for it. Definitely not Albon's fault. He couldn't have got out of the way of that. He had all right to go for that move. But unfortunately, sometimes things happen. And it's a lap 1 incident. There's not a lot that could be done about it, unfortunately. And that left Albon and Ricciardo out of the race. Albon, it's really unlucky for Williams because they're working hard to repair these chassis. Ultimately, being without another one will be bad, because for this weekend, I believe Sargent is driving Albon's chassis, which was damaged from Australia. So if they're now going to have a second damaged chassis, I mean, they're in big trouble. They could be driving 2 damaged chassis at China, and could be in a spot of bother with that. But yeah, moving on. I'm trying to think what else significant happened. And we had the red flag after that. McLaren was showing decent pace, but really it's hard to point out what happened in this race, because at the same time so much happened in this race. There wasn't really any major significant overtakes. I mean, Checo Perez had a couple of brilliant overtakes, to be fair to him. Yeah, not regular overtaking spots where he was making those moves as well. Some brilliant overtakes from him. As I said, McLaren were showing good pace, but clearly not still on the level of Ferrari, and Ferrari were the faster team, but ultimately Red Bull were dominant and secured another 1-2, their third 1-2 of the season. Ferrari obviously bagged that 1-2 in Australia, so now every race in the opening 4 has had a 1-2 finish. This is honestly more boring than last season, man, and we have had different race winners, so there's a positive in that sense. The championship's pretty close, but it's not ideal. I'm trying to think of significant things to talk about, because there's a lot to talk about, but it's so difficult to unpack it. I suppose we should talk about Charles Leclerc. We'll talk about Charles Leclerc and the Mercedes in one, because that's an interesting point, I suppose. Both went for 1 stops. Leclerc managed to do so, and that secured him a P4 in the race. That's just because he drove so amazingly on that first stint. Had Mercedes decided to do the same thing, they would probably have not secured the same amount of points they did in the race. Obviously, at the end, George Russell did manage to get past Piastri. Ultimately, Alonso and Piastri would have probably passed both Mercedes by the end of the race had they not pitted for mediums and gone on that late stint at the end. So, the way I see it is Mercedes didn't have the pace to do a one-stop today. Ferrari pulled it off with Leclerc. Leclerc was the best driver on the grid by a mile and rightfully got driver of the day. And he secured P4 in the race, only 6 seconds behind Carlos Sainz, who did a two-stop strategy, which was ultimately the faster strategy. But with how far Leclerc was down the order, perhaps a one-stop was faster for him, I don't know. But Verstappen was 20 seconds ahead of the closest non-Red Bull car. The Red Bull dominance continues, it seems, which isn't fantastic news, but at least Perez has been a little bit closer to him. That's something to talk about from qualifying. Perez was really close to Verstappen, less than a tenth, and over a race distance, only 12.5 seconds is not as bad as it has been in the past between the two. And Perez, as much as I don't think he's going to take the fight to Verstappen this season, he might be a little bit closer and do enough to keep his drive. I think it's honestly the two other men on the podium, Perez and Sainz, they're kind of fighting to be Verstappen's teammate next season in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's pretty much all to talk about from the race. It was a pretty decent one, but yeah, there's not a lot of talking points. So yeah, now let's move over to my predictions. My predictions. This is the worst week of my predictions by a country mile. My biggest good surprise, Logan Sargent. I might have given myself this. I might have. Because he actually drove quite a decent race, to be completely honest. He wasn't that bad, but he had a couple of bad moments. I mean, there was a dodgy pit stop, I think. I can't quite remember, but I feel there was a dodgy pit stop from Williams on his car. And he had that little incident where he came off the track. I don't know what corner it was, but he went off the track, and that pretty much ruined his day. Would have been quite a good race from him. I would have probably given myself that had he been a few places up, but you can't really get a biggest good surprise point for a guy finishing last of the running cars, so I'm not going to give myself that. Moving on now to stinker of the day. I don't even know what to say about this. I went with Fernando Alonso. I just felt something in the air. Did not come. He finished P6. And his teammate Lance Stroll finished down in 12th and was saying the car was slow and there was no way you could have got points, pretty much. Meanwhile, his teammate's in P6, so it doesn't really make much sense from Lance, but it's what it is. My driver of the day was Oscar Piastri. He drove a decent race, finished P8, but McLaren did not have the pace on the day. Not even really. He wasn't able to beat a Mercedes in George Russell, who finished 7th, which I'm surprised by, to be honest. I didn't think Mercedes would really be in the fight with the McLarens. But Norris finished 5th. He wasn't able to beat his teammate. He was never going to get driver of the day. So, yeah, my driver of the day finished 8th. Did not win it. Charles Leclerc won driver of the day, and rightfully so, in my opinion. Now on to the first, and spoiler alert, only prediction that I got right. I said Max Verstappen would finish on pole. It's going to be a long day, innit? I think we all saw that coming. In the third place, I went with Lando Norris. Finished 5th. He could have got a podium. He could have, if McLaren were a bit faster than Ferrari, but they weren't. He finished how far off the podium? 9 seconds. Ferrari had a significant enough pace advantage over McLaren, but to be fair, Lando finished P3 in quali, so I wasn't that far off with that one. But yeah, so that'll get very bad. Second, I went with Max Verstappen. My whole thing in the prediction, if I remember rightly, was he was going to have a dodgy pit stop, and the McLarens will have some genius strategy, which would see Lando finish 3rd, and Oscar Piastri win the Grand Prix. Piastri finished 8th, Lando finished 5th, Verstappen won. All of them are wrong. I mean, sometimes you've got to go on something crazy. I went with an Oscar Piastri win. It very much didn't pay off. Speaking of things that are crazy, what on earth have I done with this one crazy prediction? I said Sargent will score points as part of it. Well, that could have been the whole prediction. Why did I go on this whole thing? He finished 17th. He did not score points. We're already wrong. I said he would out-qualify Albon. He didn't do that. And he would finish ahead of Albon. He did do that, to be fair, but Albon didn't finish, so it was going to be quite hard not to. But yeah, that is 1 out of 8. So let's do after 4 races. We're on how many ish out of 32? I've managed to get 8. Oh my word. We're on a quarter. I wanted to get half by the end of this season. We're on a quarter. We might need to start going with some more Verstappen poles and wins, I think. It's going to be how we're going to rack up these points, I reckon. But yeah, as I said at the start, sorry for no video on Saturday. Sorry for the delay to this one. There will be another video tomorrow. That is going to wrap this up. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.